What if COVID-19 were a Trojan horse designed to shred our Constitution, implement a global surveillance system, introduce and familiarize the population with virtual doctors and medicine, self-driving cars and virtual currency, doing away with paper money altogether? Does it sound like a frightening science fiction novel to you? Well, it may hold more clues than you'd wish to know about. We'll explore this and more in today's video.
穿橙色衣服的先生，请您把口罩戴好，把口罩戴好，谢谢。
你好，我是防疫机器人安学士，目前正在进行环境测试。
您好，欢迎来到电视卫生节目。
欢迎戴口罩，我们都必须要戴口罩。
您37度3的话，可以去发热门诊了。
We take you to China, where a battle is quietly brewing between the US and China's artificial intelligence ambitions. Chinese Asia's Jeremy Ko takes a closer look at what some say is the coming AI Cold War.
This is a table tennis training session with a twist. His sparring partner is not a human, but an elaborate machine which uses artificial intelligence for serves and returns. It's developed by China's largest robotic company Sinsong and the China Table Tennis Academy.
因为陪练的话，有时候会用一些发球机嘛，但是我觉得发球机它有时候就跟实战的话结合稍微差一点，但是这种机器人的话，我觉得它可以这个动作模拟真人的话比较像一点，所以说它更接近于实战吧，做陪练的话。
This is just one example of how investments in the digital sector are changing how people live, work and play in China. President Xi Jinping has repeatedly stressed the necessity of promoting scientific and technological innovations in government reform, and this includes areas like big data as well as artificial intelligence. China's goal is to foster a $1 trillion AI industry by 2030, and today it's home to tech giants like Alibaba, Tencent and Baidu. But China's dazzling AI advances is increasingly seen as a threat to the United States. To combat that threat, the Trump administration has announced tariffs targeting industries key to China's digital push: aerospace, automobiles, information technology, and robots.
AI fundamentally is used to increase productivity and maximize efficiency. So whichever country has a wide application of AI technology will have an edge over its competitors. And in terms of geopolitics, I would say AI will have its largest impact on economic development.
Is it possible that Americans are being asked to stay indoors to get them accustomed to the new normal heading our way that all of these governors keep talking about?
We're weeks away from going into a new strategy and a new reality, but it's predicated on people continuing to stay the course.
Are the empty hospitals, some of which will never reopen, the furloughed doctors and nurses, preparing each of us to get that medical diagnosis on our laptops? A recent Newsweek article by Rick Jackson, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Jackson Healthcare, the third largest healthcare staffing company in the United States, comes with the headline, "Most hospitals are empty. Soon they might be closed for good." The article mentions how the industry shed 43,000 healthcare workers in just the first month of the coronavirus, expecting equal or greater layoffs this month. Sounds a bit suspect, doesn't it? Will we be moving toward automated cars, and will legislation maybe be passed banning the use of legacy cars, untrustworthy with that biological being commandeering it? It's scary stuff. Here's an advertisement for it from the International Telecommunication Union. In the midst of COVID-19, where are the driverless cars? The COVID-19 crisis has reignited debates on the rapid deployment of autonomous vehicles. Autonomous vehicles can protect transportation workers and provide contact-free delivery. But while transport worker health would benefit from this, there are technical and regulatory barriers. to reaching the full potential of autonomous vehicles, and humans are still required to load and unload vehicles, shifting risk of infection to staff and customers. These are among the many factors the driverless car community must discuss in order to realize our self-driving future.
Going into a new strategy and a new reality.
Are we told to not exchange cash money during this pandemic due to science, or because we want to transition to a purely digital economy?
Concerns over coronavirus, well, they've created intense swings in financial markets. But I'm talking about greenbacks, the cash in your wallet. We touch it, we pass it between people. Some people even lick their fingers as they count it. Is that a problem?
Viewers from Plymouth to Grosse Pointe ask, can you get coronavirus from handling money? The answer is, we don't know, but it's worth thinking about. Since mid-February, the Bank of China has been either destroying bills or disinfecting their cash with ultraviolet light and high temperatures, then storing it for 7 to 14 days before re-releasing it back into the circulation. That is based on studies that have shown bacteria and viruses can survive on money. Now, there is no study that shows the COVID-19 virus can survive on cash. However, an unidentified representative from the World Health Organization reportedly told a British newspaper that cash could be contributing to the spread of COVID-19. Now, the U.S. Treasury has not made any statement on U.S. currency. Until this issue is properly studied, I would recommend a common sense approach. Where possible, use cashless options. When you do handle cash, wash your hands or use hand sanitizer afterward, especially if you're about to handle food.
Will robots be replacing the workers who lost all of their jobs, now dependent on a nanny state to keep them afloat? It all certainly sounds like an Orwellian nightmare.
All over the world, Amazon is building giant delivery facilities, which it calls fulfillment centers, where traditional warehouses have static rows of shelving with staff walking back and forth. Here it's the shelves which do the walking.
Oh, it's such a cheery sound. The beautiful echo of human jobs disappearing so that they might go on welfare before, of course, our Georgia Guidestones agenda is implemented and we head to that Denver airport for a season.
Behold, the Georgia Guidestones. These granite monoliths mysteriously appeared about 40 years ago. And if you're thinking aliens or a cult or even the 10 Commandments, well, you're not the only one. Just ask this guy.
And you take pictures of it, you get a huge board. When you put your head down in there like this and look through it, a ball of energy comes through that sucker, man.
These standing stones are enormous and made of solid granite. When you're near them, they are genuinely impressive and imposing, the sort of thing that makes you wonder how ancient people ever managed to raise them up and to place them so precisely that they act as an astronomical calendar. I don't normally speculate like this in videos, but these stones inspire some pretty good stories. And some pretty bad ones, too. Because, like I said, if you wanted to inflame conspiracy theorists, building a modern Stonehenge that acts as an astronomical calendar with 10 commandments inscribed upon it, one of which says that you should guide reproduction wisely, and another that says it'd be a really good idea to have a world population under 10% of what it currently is.
We were at one of these meetings yesterday, and I remember that a lady told you that she had had 8 children, and 4 of them had died in childbirth, or shortly thereafter. But if all of them had survived, she'd have 8 children. And what the developing world does not need is more children.
And I think that was the biggest aha to Bill and me when we got into this work, is we asked ourselves, of course, the same hard-nosed question you'd ask, which is, if you get into this work and you start to save these children, will women just keep overpopulating the world? And thank goodness the converse is absolutely true. So they don't do that, because women say to themselves they want 2 children to survive into adulthood. If she knows that 2 will survive into adulthood, she will naturally bring down her population.
Well, I think on the one hand it is true. AI will not have true emotion and won't appeal to people, but the process of doing taxes will absolutely 80% be done by machines. The humans will be displaced in the next probably 5 years, maybe
constantly monitored by facial recognition cameras that are able to instantly put a face to a name. Now the Chinese are also ranked, given a mark out of a possible 950 points. A score in the 700s is considered good. Around the 500 mark is not. For now, the number is a sort of bank credit rating, keeping track of everyone's spending habits.
I think being ranked is a good thing. A society has to have rules.
It forces us to be well behaved.
It may seem scary, but it's just like that here. We're used to it, and anyway, we don't have a choice.
Groupthink sets up the potential for abuse, where a person can be scorned simply for being not the same, simply for being different.
In an effort to keep all of its subjects in line, Beijing is taking the system a step further in 2020. It's aggregating data gathered by banks, private companies, and the state to rate if someone's a good or bad citizen.
By using the most data possible, the so-called big data, the system will play an important role in rebuilding a moral society.
The state will go over every detail of a person's life with a fine-tooth comb. Their financial situation, spending habits, career, even behavior on social media. Criticizing the government online or displaying outward signs of wealth is a no-no. On the other hand, praising the party or giving blood increases your social credit. Xiao Wenwang is a model citizen. She lives in Nanjing, a testing ground for social ranking. Married with a child, she has a job in a retirement home, no debts, and she wouldn't dream of jaywalking.
As a good citizen, I respect the rules of the road. If I didn't, I'd lose points on my social credit.
In theory, everything can be taken into account in the social score, even the most innocuous errands like supermarket shopping. When Xiao Wenwang makes an electronic payment, her purchases tell the state a lot about her. Buying cigarettes would count against her. On the other hand, nappies show she's an attentive mother. Beer could indicate alcoholism. She'd be better off buying water. In this pilot city of 8 million people, there are only 18,000 model citizens. For Xiao Wenwang, there are perks to be had, such as paying half price for the bus.
I get discounts for all public services, even at museums. And the library is free for me, thanks to my score.
A good score brings benefits, but people with low scores lose rights. The cinema names and shames people considered untrustworthy, plastering their details, even their addresses, across big screens.
It's a matter of principle. Those people have to be condemned.
Unfortunately, many people are still not taking it seriously.
Those people aren't honest, so they have to pay the price.
It's only right to pay your debts. You have to blacklist those that don't.
The Supreme Court has created a blacklist for so-called bad citizens, those whose ratings have dropped to zero. On it are companies, but also 23 million people to date. Among them is this journalist Liu Hu. He got a little too close to uncovering corruption among high-profile party members. After being sued for defamation by the subject of a story he'd written, he was blacklisted. But he only realized when he tried to buy a train ticket and was told he was banned from traveling.
That tells me I'm still on the blacklist.
Punished because he's been branded untrustworthy by the state.
Once you're blacklisted, you can no longer get a bank loan, start a business, buy an apartment, or even send your children to a private school.
Liu Hu is among a tiny minority of people who have dared to criticize the system, which some are calling a digital dictatorship.
I worry, because I think many people like me will be deprived of individual freedoms, and all of us will live with restrictions of one kind or another.
After our meeting, Liu Hu learned that his name had been removed from the blacklist, but he still has a long way to go if he doesn't want to languish at the bottom of the social credit hierarchy.
For those of you just unquestioningly in compliance with this unprecedented takeover of our rights and liberties, what world do you think you live in? Do you actually trust your media, your entertainment industry? Can you? Do you think it's not all essentially a propaganda wing of the government? Are you that blind? You're so willing to report your neighbor for having some guests over, or yell at kids in the backyard who are playing together, in your artificially induced fear state driven by the media, and you're essentially inviting what's to come on in. This may be it, or it may just be a test run, but they're learning quite a lot about your social score. You're a QAnon follower out there? You're queuing up to shame me in the comments and tell us how Trump is God's anointed one, that the Holy Spirit is poured out over him and he only pretends to be an insider while working behind the scenes to make massive arrests of people while cleaning up Washington. Q is for the truther who cares not for the truth, who only wants their political biases affirmed. They're brainwashed. It's not based in reality. According to the Q community, the deceased John F. Kennedy Jr. is the author of the message board posts, and he works behind the scenes with Donald Trump to liberate hundreds of thousands of human trafficking victims. If this were true, you'd be seeing social media posts of families being reunited with their long-lost children. There would be no ability to suppress 35,000 children being discovered in underground tunnels. To the QAnon community, it's time to actually want the truth. You're delusional, speaking of Donald Trump as though he were the son of man himself. It's stupid.
Is Donald Trump basically the king of Israel? So that's how a radio host referred to the president today, and Trump quoted his remarks in a series of tweets this morning. The president thanking Wayne Allen Root for calling him, quote, the greatest president for Jews and Israel, and also for saying that, quote, they love him, Trump, like he's the second coming of God.
See, I think he's going after what he said he would do. I think he's meeting with a lot of resistance.
I love that he's America first. I love that he's not a politician. You know, for so long, we've had politicians promising us stuff. The swamp is horrible, and Trump is there. He's there for the small guy. If Jesus Christ gets down off the cross and told me Trump is with Russia, I would tell him, hold on a second. I need to check with the president if it's true.
So I've been thinking a lot about this one lately. Why would they want to replace us with robots? Do they actually foresee a sustainable economy without enough consumers who have the money? Do these mammon worshippers want to pay us with the kind of welfare so that we can continue to buy their products? That doesn't seem plausible. Any economist who has thought that one through would see how unsustainable it is. So why? I think they are planning to replace us because they'll still want to continue to innovate and they'll need their luxuries and goods. They just need something to make them, something being the key, not someone. Rather than having to look at a blue-collar janitor or assembly lineman, they'll just have robots and rid themselves of the rest of us biohazardous flesh beings that they currently have to occupy the world with.
For now, the United States is still where the bulk of AI innovations are taking place. Back in 2016, a US government report warned that China has already surpassed the United States, at least in terms of journal articles that mention deep learning or deep neural network.
因为它确实发展的非常快，而且我们有个先天的优势，就是跟欧美不一样的，虽然说他们的这个底子是非常 solid， 我们有一个先天的优势，因为我们是一个足够大的一个市场，所以我们其实可以去做一个闭环的测试，就是我们不需要走到国外去，我们直接可以在本地去落地的，有足够的市场，足够的资金。
The stakes are too high for either country to let their guards down. The development of AI is expected to bring about the fourth industrial revolution. For the United States, losing its lead in artificial intelligence could very well mean losing its economic supremacy eventually. As for China, it wouldn't want to see a hard-to-come-by opportunity to reign supreme again slip through its grasp.
The devil? Well, the devil is always in the details. God bless you all in Jesus' mighty name.